Welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Swale. Today is another in the Future of Texas series in partnership with Texas 2036. Today, we're coming to you from the Permian Basin. This is the place powering Texas, the country, and increasingly the world. It's the engine of American energy and one of the fastest growing regions anywhere. Joining me today, Tracee Bentley, President and CEO of the Permian Strategic Partnership and a Texas 2036 board member. Tracee leads a coalition of energy companies and university systems working to make sure the Permian's communities are built to last. And Jordan Wat, Director of Government Affairs at Texas 2036, who works with policymakers and leaders across the state on smart, data-driven policy for Texas's future. So here's the question for today. Can the Permian continue to power the economy and build communities that last over the next decade? Tracee, thank you so much for being here. And Jordan, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Driving into Midland, I didn't know really what to expect. This is my first time here, and I kind of like it. People seem sort of happy here. They seem happy.
Very, very happy here.
Yeah, it's. I didn't know what. I didn't expect people to be sad, but it was. They were. I don't know. It seems the weather is nice. It's. I don't know. It's got the real Texas, big Texas sky.
Mm-hmm. It does.
More than anywhere else, really.
One of our biggest and best attributes is we can see a sunset for miles and miles and miles. Nothing is obstructing the view.
So, Tracee, people say the Permian is important. Can you sort of make that real for people? What does that mean that it's important?
I sure can. If we were our own producing energy country, we would be the fourth largest energy producing country in the world, only behind Russia, Saudi, and Iran.
And that's just the Permian Basin alone, not Texas as a whole, just Permian Basin.
That's just 22 counties in West Texas and 3 in southeast New Mexico.
Jeez.
To put that in perspective, we're about 86,000 square miles. However, we have a population of about 800,000. So Minnesota is 86,000 square miles, and they have 5.3 million people in it. We have less than 800,000. But energy till the day is long.
So it sounds like we're punching above our weight a little bit.
We're punching way above our weight. And then just in the United States alone, we produce more than 50% of energy in the United States.
Yeah.
Right here in the Permian.
And I just want to give a little bit of framing here. We're going to be talking about the Permian Basin and energy for certain, but there's so much more going on in the Permian Basin that we'll be talking about today. It's not just about energy. It's about a lot more that I think a lot of issues that Texas as a whole is facing. So I think it's going to be a really interesting and exciting conversation. So what's the most surprising thing happening in Permian production right now, Tracee?
I think even last year when we were hearing that production may slow down a little bit, we still set records for production in 2025. And that is because our technology every single month in this industry improves. And so what was true last month in our industry is no longer true. That's how fast it's evolving. And so even with, like I said, the demand going down slightly, we hit record numbers last year. And I think there's a possibility we continue to see that, even with what's going on internationally.
And so, yeah, I guess growth is good, right? We want to see more growth.
Yes.
Yeah, with everything that's going on. So, Jordan, how central is the Permian to Texas's future? Not just today, but it's Texas 2036 after all, focusing on the bicentennial Future of Texas podcast, the next 10 years. Yeah. How important is the Permian?
Yeah, oil and gas coming from the Permian and other energy sources in the Permian has obviously been this fuel to our state's economy. We wouldn't be the 8th largest economy in the world if it was not for oil and gas. It's helped us through some really tough times in the past. It's helped us be insulated from recessions and the pandemic and some of the effects of those things. And so ultimately, we want to make sure that we're preserving that level of lifeblood that we are receiving from the Permian and ensuring that we are leveraging it to the best of our abilities as a state.
And what's the job picture like here? Like as far as there's people that work at the gas station and all that stuff, but the whole energy sector, that the Permian Basin as a whole supporting how many jobs? Like, is it?
The energy sector here in the Permian Basin includes over 900,000 positions. Now, I understand from what Tracee has shared with us that actually they still need another, 176,000 by 2040 in order to meet the growth that they're expecting within their industry. Something that's pretty remarkable to me, and I think was touted by the Texas Workforce Commission a couple weeks ago when they dropped jobs numbers for March was that actually the unemployment rate here in Midland-Odessa is at 3%, far ahead of the 4.3% that the state is seeing. So there's clearly a lot that's going right in terms of the workforce here in Midland-Odessa and the Permian Basin at large. But there are obviously challenges that we're going to probably dive into a little bit more deeply here in this conversation.
I think we will, for sure. So, Texans in general, like I said, this is my first time here. I didn't know what to expect, really. I was born and raised in Austin. I guess you'd call me a city boy. If I was born and raised in Midland, would I still be a city boy?
No.
No, not at all. You were very quick to answer that. I appreciate it. It's not connected to, I don't feel like it's connected to my daily life. But it sounds like it is. Can you sort of put that into perspective? Like how did the Permian Basin connects to sort of my daily life in Austin?
Goodness. I mean, I think 95% of consumer goods actually have oil and gas byproduct within them. So it's not even just the car that you are driving, but the soap you're using to clean yourself, in fact, is a oil and gas byproduct. So when we think about what we use in day-to-day life, the Permian Basin and the oil and gas story isn't just an energy story, but it's actually a part of everything that we do as Texans or U.S. Americans.
What about education?
Sure. I mean, the
like
oil and gas.
How does it support the education? Because it's like it's a big part of our education funding, right?
Right. Absolutely. So the oil and gas industry provides $3.1 billion to the Permanent University Fund. That is what helps a number of our university systems. It also puts money into our Permanent School Foundation as well, or Permanent School Fund, in fact, which provides direct dollars into our classrooms too. So, I mean, there is a level of return that the Permian is providing to our schools that sort of serves as the backbone of those funding streams for those universities and K-12 school campuses.
I mean, a question for either of you. Education, we've talked about it on the Future of Texas series here a couple of times, and I talk about it regularly with a lot of people in my professional life and in normal life. As the Permian Basin grows and the energy production grows, what's the future look like for education funding? I assume it grows with it, right?
Well, it's supposed to, yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to. That's good.
We would argue we're lagging behind. Probably many other places, especially in rural Texas, are too. But we think we're especially behind because, as you pointed out, most of the funding for not only K through 12, but higher ed and beyond comes from right here. And yet, many of our schools give the most back in recapture. And so one would think if we come from such a resource-rich area, that maybe our schools would be reflective of that. And the fact is they're not. Yeah.
I guess it's, I want to just highlight that because, obviously with everything that's happened in the legislature the past couple sessions and probably what's going to happen in the next session, just the importance of this area and the economy and the growth and how much that affects just daily lives of families in Texas going forward over the next 10 years and beyond. Tracee, I want to ask, what are the factors that have supported oil production growth the most in the Permian?
Really, I think it was in the past, let's just say 10 years, we saw a huge shift in mindset and really modeling that the industry used. Whereas once upon a time, for a very long time, you would construct a well pad and you would drill one hole and it would go down vertically, and as you would go down and get whatever oil was at the bottom of that hole.
Yeah.
Well, now you create the same pad and you might put 20 wells on it, and those 20 wells can go down a mile and laterally 3.
Jeez.
And so think about that.
It's like a bowl of spaghetti underneath the ground.
Yes. And if you look at that from just a cost perspective, it was very expensive to drill one well that could only go down and recover so much. And now you're drilling 10, 15 holes on one pad, and they're going 3 miles out all the way and bringing that mineral back. And so we're recovering a lot more than we used to, and recovering it much more cost effectively.
How does private, I don't know what the Permian Basin, like private public land mix looks like. Is it mostly private around here?
Almost solely private.
Okay, how does that affect how we extract the energy from the ground? Is it easier because it's private?
Well, I will say yes, in that we don't have federal restrictions per se that we have to deal with. Permitting, for example, is probably the one that everybody thinks about. When it's on private land, of course, we're regulated by the Texas Railroad Commission, but Texas is the most regulatory friendly state, arguably, when it comes to our industry in the entire country. And so when one of our companies is looking for permits, they go through the process, but they can have a permit turn around in a matter of weeks.
Okay.
And in some states, I can tell you, it's years.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So it's we find something, we find a good spot, and we can turn around pretty quick, start producing from it. That's good to hear. So, you're sort of describing the technology changing with the being able to go down and also, going vertical and also horizontal, which sounds great. Not sure how that works, but that's not my industry.
I would love to take you on a rig tour sometime.
That would be great. I would love. Can we go down and over?
No.
Dang, that's okay. I'd still love to go. The other technologies sort of surrounding the production, is there anything else out there, like any other concrete examples that would sort of surprise somebody outside the industry?
I think so. Most people probably wouldn't know that we have the lowest CO2 emissions per well of anywhere in the country. Now, to be fair, a lot of that is because of our rock formation, but the other part of it is because our industry innovates, again, so well that we have additional controls at the wellhead that we really don't see a lot of CO2 emittance into the air. And that's really due to ever-changing technology, not only at the wellhead, but with drones. Now we can monitor entire oil and gas fields and their emissions just based from drone technology.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Is there any technology that sort of helps helps the people out there that are drilling this stuff that kind of, helps them decide, do I go left or right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Lots of AI is coming into play now. It's interesting to hear people talk about AI now, and we could argue that our industry for a long time has been using AI when it goes to drilling those holes a mile down and 3 long. But certainly that plays a huge part on technology, on showing them, if you're going to drill here are the best places to go outwards to go recover the oil.
Yeah. So, it's more than just an energy story going on here. There's a lot of technology as well that's happening.
I like to say, the only other entity that puts more resources into technology innovation than the U.S. oil and gas industry is the U.S. Department of Defense.
It's surprising to hear. There you go. Jordan, from a policy and competitiveness standpoint, what matters most about the Permian's energy performance for Texas?
I would say probably, just the stability of it. Productivity across oil and gas over the last couple of years has continued to rise. I think it was 14.4% or something like that year over year last year. Even as, the digging of new wells and active wells has been going down. And so just remaining consistent and continuing to grow that. We've talked a lot about oil production in particular, but there's a lot going on as well in liquid natural gas. LNG has been really popping off, not just here in the Permian Basin, but also across the Gulf Coast. And so continuing to build on those resources that we have will be crucial, I think. And again, it harkens back to some level of insulation that we have. Let's face it, a lot of Americans are seeing the price tag at the pump and wondering, what's going on. But fortunately, here in Texas, we've seen a lot of stability in that regard because of what we have in the ground today. And so just trying to maintain that as best as possible and grow that is going to be crucial.
So from a policy and competitive standpoint as well, I'm not Oracle or Samsung or what are any other big technology companies. I'm not them. I don't know what's going on in their boardrooms, but certainly they're looking at energy prices.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's more than, can my employee afford their energy bill? There's data centers that they're looking at too. How does that, how does the policy and competitive standpoint, how does that mix, how does that shape their decisions?
Yeah, well, Texas has pretty reasonable electricity prices at this time. We in the west and Midwest portions of our states clearly have some good things going for us in terms of electricity. But ultimately, that's an area that I think West Texas and the Panhandle has somewhat struggled with. Like they create the energy here, but how we ensure that, there is some level of low pricing that is occurring can be a challenge. And then on top of that, just getting the electricity transmission to occur throughout the state has been at times very cost intensive. And so, it's not just electricity that they're looking at, though. It's also water and other natural resources that they require for their operations. It's also to ensure that, the school system here in the Permian Basin is creating the workers that they need, the level of workforce that they require, ensuring that the employees that they have are finding affordable housing, adequate health care as well, and so on and so forth. And so trying to build that ecosystem will be really crucial for the Permian Basin.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, there's so much going on. I mean, it sounds like it's more than, like I said, it's more than just oil in the ground, energy in the ground, whatever it is. It's the systems that surround it, the grid, the pipelines, the water, the workforce, all of that stuff, making those policy decisions now so that we stay competitive. So question for both of you or either of you, are we keeping up policy-wise to make sure that those systems are in place and are robust enough to handle that, to stay competitive?
Well, I think in the Permian, we would say we're a bit behind.
Yeah.
Because going back to just the natural gas, we have an abundance of natural gas here. And we need it, right? We need it out here to expand our distributed generation and our access to power, but also we've got data centers coming out. The rest of the country needs it. We have what's mostly called associated gas, and that means that gas is a byproduct of us producing the oil.
Yeah.
And it has to be separated at the wellhead. So it comes out of the well, gas goes this way, oil goes that way. Well, right now, our pipelines are almost at capacity, and there's nowhere to put the gas, because if you're going to prioritize pipelines for oil and gas, you're going to choose oil, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the best revenue generator right now. There was a point a couple of years ago where we were literally we were paying people to take our gas.
Yeah.
Because we had so much of it and we had to clear capacity so that we could get the oil in the pipeline. So I think it would be a big opportunity and a missed one, quite frankly, if we don't start aggressively expanding and building new pipelines so that we can get that natural gas to market.
So Jordan, on a previous Future of Texas podcast with Pablo Vegas, CEO of ERCOT, we did a deep dive into the future of electricity. One of the big takeaways was that the electric demand is not going to slow down. It's actually accelerating. Mm-hmm. And I guess with, everything happening with AI, every time I use, whatever AI app I want to on my phone or my computer, I'm using, 20% more or 20 times more energy than if I just did a Google search. Mm. But, I get better answers, so maybe I'm using fewer searches. I don't know. Can you sort of remind us how that electricity outlook, like how much electricity we're actually talking about here in the future?
Yeah, sure. So moving forward, we're looking at electric demand increasing by over 11% year over year. 35, I think in their April outlook that they revised, April 2025 outlook that they revised, 35 gigawatts will be dedicated to data center demand alone by the time we get to 2035. And so if those data centers do in fact come online, that's a huge gap that we are going to experience. And so lawmakers who are going to be convening next January are going to have to look into how do we ensure that there is going to be enough infrastructure built into place to meet that demand.
Yeah. And so, Tracee, when you hear about that sort of demand growth happening, what does that mean for the natural gas out of the Permian? I mean, hopefully, it sounds like maybe you won't have to pay people to take off your hands, but what does that mean for Permian gas or Permian Basin gas?
It's a huge, huge opportunity, not only to make sure it goes to additional much-needed power, but also to help continue to keep rates low for Texans across the state. It was during Winter Storm Uri that we learned an awful lot. Yeah. But I think one of our biggest takeaways here in the Permian was, at a moment's notice, our oil and gas industry out here, especially our natural gas folks, need to be ready to go because that's going to be our baseline power.
Yeah.
That's going to be what maintains it when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. And so we learned an awful lot. And I think it's going to play a very critical role moving forward. It should into our grid reliability.
So how does that play into, I don't know, I mean, how do we get how much investment do we need to be putting into getting the energy from here to, not to be picky, but my house in Austin? Do we need to put more into the electricity lines and the grid? Where does that come into play? Getting it from here to there?
Oh, well, there's no doubt, because if we don't have enough electricity, for example, to be able to produce the energy that your side of the state needs, then like shipping it regardless, we can't produce it, which we're staring out in the face right now. Our producers need to be able to connect to the grid to keep producing energy.
Yeah.
And once that happens, certainly those molecules need to travel and travel efficiently.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like production is going great, like gangbusters. Production is awesome. It sounds like it's the transmission that might be the bottleneck.
I think that's a huge part of it. Certainly, we don't have enough, and what we do have, like we've been talking about, whether it's under the ground or on top of the ground, it's at capacity. And going back to the conversation that you all had with ERCOT, and having a conversation with Encore, they are excited about expanding out to the Permian, and they have a multi-billion-dollar plan to expand, provided, going back to regulations, they can get through the permitting process.
Yeah. So for both of you, whoever, I'm curious. You know, obviously everyone watching this knows what's going on in the world with energy and the Strait of Hormuz and all that stuff. You know, what does this current moment tell us about the role of the Permian Basin, not only in Texas but the world?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think the Permian is a stranger to world conflicts, maybe sometimes disrupting the industry that they are so prevalent in. But the reality is, as the top producer of oil and gas in our country, they are adequately able to respond to those incidences that may be occurring. And so in a lot of ways, I think that we see there is some short-term volatility, but long-term, we have turned out all right through various world crises in the past. And I'm pretty optimistic that we will be just fine getting through the current conflicts of today.
Yeah.
Somebody just a couple of days ago, and I loved how they put this, called the Permian a stabilizer for the U.S. right now. And then you could argue parts of the world too. But what they meant about that was no other country has a Permian Basin, right? Because it's subject to much more volatility and government hostility. But we are hands down the most safe, secure energy basin in the world. And it happens to be right here in the state of Texas. And so when that happens, we should feel better about where we sit domestically, meaning we have energy to power our homes and our system here in the U.S. But then it also provides some foreign stability in times right now.
Yeah,
we can rely on our steady production.
What does it look like from a local perspective when stuff like this happens? You know, some sort of world event happens, and the Permian is looked at as sort of that stabilizing effect. On a local perspective, does the industry feel like it's supported enough to sort of meet that new demand, that new pressure?
I think it depends. There have been moments in time where I think our men and women would tell you that they didn't feel supported, that they felt like they were taken for granted, because they go to work every day, no matter who the president is, no matter who's in Congress, no matter who's in favor, who's not, and they produce the energy that everybody, all Americans, are going to need. But I think they would tell you right now, just from a bit of a shift in attitude, that they feel appreciated and they know how important their work is, and they go to work every day and hold their head high. And I can feel a sense of pride in this community, and it feels really good.
Maybe that's what I felt when I came into Midland. That sense of pride.
I bet it is. I bet that is what you felt.
So, talking about the local issue, like how people locally feel about stuff, the community really, people in New York or Austin or whatever, they might picture Midland-Odessa sort of as a small town. Guilty as charged. I brought it up at the very beginning. What does it actually feel like to live and work here?
It it feels like you are among some of the most hardworking women and men in the country, because you are. And it also feels like you are among families and individuals who have the strongest sense of community that I've ever felt in my life. If a motorist gets stranded on the side of any of our roads, he or she is not going to be there but for a couple of seconds, because 2 or 3 or 5 cars are going to stop and make sure that he or she has what they need.
Yeah.
You'll never open a door by yourself, because there's always going to be somebody in front of you who's going to open that door for you, or invite you to go first, or step in front of them for in line. It's just truly one of the most community-oriented places that I've ever been around and I've ever felt. And when we have people come to visit us, whether it's family or friends, that's the first thing they notice.
So are there any challenges with this growth that's happening? I mean, with the increase in production, and we've alluded to it and talked about it specifically, the as that increase grows over the next 10 years and beyond, what does that feel like? What are the challenges that the Permian Basin, that locals are facing? Not necessarily, I mean, certainly someone sitting at the head of the board, or maybe just a local family that is just trying to work and live and survive.
Well, with the Great American Renaissance, or the invention of fracking, our infrastructure did not keep up with that growth. And so our roadways were built largely for an agricultural-based economy. They aren't big enough. They can't handle the volume that they see on them now. And quite honestly, the design doesn't make sense for the kind of activity that we're seeing on them. So number one, our roadways need to be updated and made more safe. 2, it goes the same thing with our education system. We used to have an amazing education system out here, and we took our eye off the ball, and now we've slipped. And so we need to make sure that families who work and live here and call it home, their children have access to very high quality schools. And thirdly, I would say our healthcare system is pretty great, but we are missing some pretty big gaps in specialty care, and gaps that every family should have access to these specialty needs, not just if you can afford to drive to Dallas or Austin or Houston. We need to make those opportunities available right here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine living out here and having to drive to one of those places for a specialty doctor or something like that. I mean, I guess it's hopefully it's not an emergency, but that's just a challenge. That's a difficult thing to have to do.
45% of residents here in West Texas or in the Permian in Texas have to go elsewhere to find specialty care.
Yeah. And a lot, I want to ask you about housing. That's something that gets a lot of focus in the urban centers, Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, whatever. Housing, especially in Austin, housing prices just sort of skyrocketing. Is the Permian Basin, Midland-Odessa, and the surrounding areas, are they experiencing the same sort of challenges with housing?
Certainly. Now, I will say over the last 3-4 years, we've seen it get better. We've seen more affordable homes being built. We've seen more apartments come in, therefore lowering the rates on the existing. And so that's been helpful. But what we still aren't seeing is you have a first-time homeowner, single or dual income, actually, it doesn't matter, who 9 times out of 10 cannot qualify for their first home loan. And so that signals to us there's something wrong if you have 2 people working, they have great jobs out here, and they're having trouble qualifying for their first house. So, I don't know what we do about it, but we're certainly, what PSP does and our member companies are we show them our numbers and say, listen, we're going to need 180,000 more workers out here by 2040. And here's what those workers are going to look like. Here's the occupations that they're going to be in and what they're going to make. Let's prepare. Let's not get behind like we did before. Let's get ahead of this.
Start building those communities now.
Yes.
As they don't wait until it's too late.
Right. As
many places have done. What about the industries that support all of this? The teachers, the nurses, are they, you talk about the statistics that you provide to their member companies. I'm assuming you include all of those people too.
Absolutely.
And how does it look for them now and in the future?
Well, you're exactly right. If I'm a teacher, a new teacher, I'm making $55,000, $60,000. a year, I have enough to cover rent and maybe a little bit more, but not really enough more to have the quality of life that I want as a 20-something-year-old just out of college with my teaching degree.
Yeah.
And so absolutely. So our teachers, nurses, first responders, all of those really essential people who make our community safe. It's expensive to live out here.
I mean, I guess, again, it's sort of a surprising thing even for me to hear someone that pays attention to this sort of stuff, across the state. I just would have assumed that it would be more affordable here than, say, where I live in Austin. And I guess that's just shows my own naivete, right? That's why I'm here, learning more. On the education part of it, though, you've brought up that you used to have a great education system. Sounds like maybe it's not getting the love and support that it needs more recently. Is that K through 12? Is that higher education? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think we could say all, but K through 12 certainly.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that even though we live pretty far away from a metro area, that our teachers and our principals and our superintendents have access to leadership opportunities like they do in the Metroplex. And so we've made a real concerted effort to invest in that training, not only for teachers, but superintendents and principals. And we're bringing the teacher training and the leadership training to the Permian instead of hoping that people can afford to go to Austin, for example, to Holdsworth Center and get that training. We're bringing the training here. And we're seeing it start to work. Yeah, I think it's really important to keep up with the most important factor in a student getting a high quality education is, number one, their teacher, and two, their principals. So making sure our teachers have the right training and right access. Yeah, is the best thing that we can do.
Are there any programs that are training the youth, the K through 12 here in the Permian for the jobs in the Permian?
There is. So one of the things that we discovered 7 years ago when we started is if there's anywhere in the country that should have a robust career technical education environment, it's here. And we had a lot of work to do. So we've invested millions and millions of dollars in regional CTE centers around the Permian that do exactly that. So every couple of years, we do an analysis of what are the jobs that we have now that we need to fill. What are the jobs looking into the future, 2030, 2040, and beyond that we're going to need to fill? And then do we have the training programs to get those people trained? And if the answer is no, we have amazing community colleges out here in Midland College and Odessa College, Howard College. We'll go build that trackway or that certificate so that we can build that.
I want to chime in for a moment and
absolutely.
actually applaud. I saw in 2024 that y'all actually... your members, along with PSP, gave $10 million to Ector County ISD to build a CTE building, in fact, a state-of-the-art one. I think it's supposed to go live in January of next year. And so when we talk about, what the Permian gives back to the state and those tax revenue funds and things of that nature, it's really eye-opening when you think about the level of investment that the business community is having to put into those public programs. And so regardless, that level of CTE training, ensuring those students are getting that credential, requires collaboration with the businesses within that community to ensure that the workforce aligns with what is needed. But I read that and was completely floored that y'all did that level of an investment, but recognized the need and jumped in where you were meant to be.
Yes. What we're finding, and we're not different than anywhere else in the state, or I think the country, but often the numbers that we get back from the government are outdated or just really off. And so I know that that's how states determine their funding level, is right through their workforce numbers. And our numbers were not matching. We're saying, wait a minute, we need way more workers than these. We need way more accountants. We need way more computer science. And so we just decided, listen, we're going to take our numbers to the state, and if they want to partner or are able to partner, then let's do that. So thank you. We've also done it in healthcare too. We're just going to do a ribbon cutting actually day after tomorrow on our first regional behavioral health center. And the state of Texas was a great partner with us on that.
Amazing.
So, I was not aware of any of that. That's great, and it's great to see that the private partnership, stepping up and sort of trying to fill these gaps and do what's needed for the community that they're a part of. I want to ask for you, Tracee, what is there's cycles with energy prices and everything like that, and I'm assuming the local workforce and what's needed and stuff like that, it sort of goes with those cycles. Has the Permian learned from past cycles to ensure that sort of looking as things go forward into the future with this increased demand, that it's stable growth over time?
Yes. I would say maybe as early as a decade ago, you would see the big ups and downs. Whereas now, and I think it's due to that manufacturing model that I spoke about in the beginning, things are a little more even. That's not to say we aren't going to have some dips,
Sure.
but they're much less than they used to be for sure. And I think now you're finding our communities, instead of when production slows, instead of halting investment, you're finding communities really lean into, okay, now is the time to go get ahead of some of these things, because when we pick back up, we don't want to be behind anymore. So it's really great to see, regardless of what's been going on the past few years with all the international volatility, that huge investments are still being made.
Yeah. Jordan, I want to ask you, everything that was just sort of said about the local challenges, whether it's education or workforce or housing or whatever, and everything that's going on. Should I, as an Austinite or any other Texan that's not engaging with this region very often, should we think about it more than just an energy operation?
I would say so. I mean, it's not just an energy operation. It is an entire system in which our state is built upon. And so recognizing that the investment is needed here to ensure that that is maintained is something that I think we can all get behind, because we have the evidence to prove that it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, cities like Dallas and Houston wouldn't be what they are today if it wasn't for the energy flowing out of the Permian Basin. And so its success is our metropolitan success as well.
Yeah. So Tracee, what's the most underappreciated workforce challenge in the Permian right now?
I think one of them has to be adult literacy. So many of our adults in the Permian are not able to read at a level 3. And a level 3 in literacy means that you can read a somewhat technical paragraph or page and absorb it pretty well and then apply it. And so we're behind that out here. And that tells us, number one, we need to figure out how to address the adult literacy challenge, but also we need to double down on pre-K through third grade literacy to make sure that we can, in some cases, break some of those cycles. But also, if you can't read, I mean, that's so fundamental to being able to succeed and do anything else. And so I would say both childhood and adult literacy is something that we really need to focus on.
So if you're recruiting someone from, say, Dallas or Houston to come build a career in the Permian Basin, what's the pitch?
I would tell them, I do not know another place in this country, certainly, maybe the world, where you can have an idea and bring an idea to this region and make it happen. And we've seen this exact thing happen over and over and over again. And not just in the oil and gas industry, but that's certainly where a lot of it happens. People come out with a big idea in the hotel and tourism industry, or in water, or so many things, and they find like-minded people, and then they invent something or create a new business, and they become these amazing entrepreneurs. And so I don't know of another place like that. The second thing I would say is there is a place to plug in. We have more nonprofits and philanthropic organizations in this area per capita than anywhere else in the state. And so there is a place to volunteer and a place to get connected, no matter what your likes or interests are here. People have a very easy time plugging into the community. Yeah.
Jordan, do you think that Texans, I guess young Texans specifically, I like to think of myself as a young Texan, but people may disagree. That's their fault. Do they see energy careers as long-term opportunities?
They certainly should. I mean, I think that we have seen a level of consistency within oil and gas. Now that technology has obviously changed, there's a lot of innovation happening. But even with those individuals who are later in their careers, right, they've been able to adapt and get training on the job to be able to keep up with that. And so there are lifelong stories of careers here in the Permian Basin that I think are exemplar of individuals that young people can aspire to. And ultimately, when we talk about these systems, that's probably the biggest hurdle that they are concerned about. How do I live here and raise a family? Or will the education systems ensure that my kids are getting an adequate education? Do I have the health care I need to, have those children come into the world and things of that nature? And so that, I think, is like, once we have the systems down, that will solve a great deal of the problem of recruitment. Not that I think that there is a big problem in recruitment per se. It's a highly valuable skill set that I think can continue to adapt over time, though, if young people are interested.
I have a fun fact.
Please. I love fun facts.
The average age of a Midlander right now is 31 years old. The average age.
Is that young compared to the state?
Significantly.
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't know. I'm younger than that, so I don't know.
Okay, well, good for you.
I was surprised to hear you give that stat, though. I mean, that is very young.
The average age. And there was a time not too long ago where the average age was in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking like less than 10 years ago. So in less than 10 years, our average went down 40 years.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable. We have more 3 and 4 year olds than any other age demographic in the county of Midland. More 3 and 4 year olds than any other age.
Just toddlers running around everywhere.
There are lots of babies around, but that's telling you there is something about the energy industry and about this area that is attracting young people.
Yeah.
Right? And they're staying, many of them. So I think it is because largely we've seen a lot of advances in our education system, in healthcare. Our roads are getting safer and there's more workforce development opportunities, but we can't let off the gas.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of 4 and 5 year olds. That's great to hear. I love to hear that people are they have families, they're making families. That's awesome. And it sounds like that this area has a real future to not only worry about, but to look forward to.
Agree.
That's
completely
awesome.
Agree.
So Jordan, Texas has been talking about workforce pipeline gaps for years and for as long as I can remember. And again, I'm very young, so maybe not that long. What's genuinely different now?
I think it's clear to a lot of individuals that moving forward, our pipeline from pre-K until you are in a career has to be truly aligned. And so there has been a lot of progress in setting up this system between K-12, community colleges, universities, other workforce development training programs, and things of that nature to recognize where the gaps are and try to fill in as needed. I don't think there's been a more collaborative time in education and workforce readiness than what we're seeing today. And so that's not to say that there are not gaps that still exist, though. Tracee brought up, young literacy rates are still below pre-pandemic levels. Numeracy is also a challenge. That's math skills for a lot of students are below 50% as well, still below pre-pandemic levels. And so there is a level of rigor that we have to build back to and then keep growing from within our education system. And so it's wonderful to have organizations like PSP recognizing that work and that it needs to continue moving forward because their business members need that.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, I know we're on a timeline here, and I want to talk a little bit more about infrastructure and water. Water's been an issue in the state of Texas, a prominent issue in the state of Texas, especially at the legislature for, the past couple sessions at least. How does water, how important is water to the Permian Basin? I mean, it's not just drinking water, right?
No, it's our lifeblood, certainly. we also out here live in a desert. And so there is a concern with not having enough drinking water. And interestingly enough, there's a concern on the other end about having too much produced water. And that's water that naturally comes out of the ground when we're pulling oil and gas out. And it's very briny and not drinkable, of course, and you shouldn't even use it in your household. And really, I don't think you could grow a garden with it.
Yeah.
So, but however, what an opportunity. And with an industry that innovates the way that we do, people right now as we speak are working on how do we get that water cleaned up to a point where you can use it on your yard or golf courses or anything but human consumption. And when that finally takes to market at scale, that is fundamentally going to be a game changer, not only for the Permian Basin, but I think for the entire state.
Yeah.
When we were talking earlier about technological innovation, that was one thing that I definitely popped into my mind was the level of produced water that is now being recycled and put back into the ground through fracking, coming back out. It's been really remarkable to see that level of efficiency that the industry has been trying to adapt to this overproduction of produced water. And where do we go from here? So it's good to hear that they are heading on a pathway to make it a little bit easier for the everyday consumer to also access given water supply concerns.
So this Future of Texas podcast series here, Texas 2036, thinking about the bicentennial, 10 years away. So over the next decade, I want to know sort of what will define success. Looking towards 2036, Jordan, what are a couple things that Texans should be watching to know if we're on the right track with all this?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think looking ahead to 2036, we have to focus on providing a level of stability to the Permian Basin that the Permian has provided to our state's economy, ensuring that they are catching up to the degree that Tracee has suggested that they need to, will only make the region thrive more. At the end of the day, ensuring though that the workers have the proper technical education that they may need, ensuring families can find affordable housing, healthcare access, things of that nature is going to be crucial to make that happen.
And Tracee, will the Permian Basin still be producing oil at scale in 2036? Is that slowing down?
I can't tell you what production levels are going to look like,
Sure.
but what I can tell you is my members have plans to be here for 50, 60 more years. I can't forecast what levels those are going to be, but there are long-term plans to be here. And that's why when we think about building hospitals and roads and schools, we don't blink an eye because we know that we're going to be here. They will tell you if they're going to be producing oil and gas anywhere in the world, it's going to be right here in the Permian. And I want to comment, if I can,
Please.
about the earlier question. I think Texas 2036 and certainly the Permian Strategic Partnership has proved out a really important model. And that model revolves around public-private partnerships. I don't think it's fair for the private sector to rely on the government to solve all their problems. I also don't think it's fair of the government to say, we don't know the answers, so therefore we're not going to do anything. I think it's when those two sectors meet that magic happens. The Permian Strategic Partnership to date has spent $213 million of our dollars investing in all of those areas that we've talked about today. But we've catalyzed our $213 million into $2.5 billion when we bring in the state of Texas, some federal government opportunities, and others to come join us and be part of the solution. And I think it's the way of solving problems of the future. And I think that we have the best model that I've ever seen right here in the Permian.
Yeah. Well, Tracee Bentley with Permian Strategic Partnership and Jordan Wat, Texas 2036, thank you all both so much for being here. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. The Permian Basin is one of the most important regions in the world, and what happens here will shape the future of Texas and our country. Tracee, Jordan, thank you again for your leadership and for being with us today. And thank you to everyone for listening. We'll see you next time as we continue exploring the future of Texas.